Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyadravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are still in our 6th chapter, quite a long one. And what verse are we on currently?
Starting on 231 tonight.
231, 6th chapter. Would you help us out, please, Ganesh?
Okay. Just checking, Mark, if Prakriti is imperishable.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Avashyam Prakriti Sangam Pureva Padaye Tatha Niyachatye Tamam Isho Apikosya Mokshastatha Sati. If Prakriti is imperishable, as the Sankhya's say, she will continue to produce attachment in the Purusha, even after the dawn of the knowledge of his complete isolation. If Ishvara is eternal, he will continue to exercise control over the Purusha. In that case, the poor Purusha will never have emancipation. His bondage will be real.
Yes. So, what Vidyaranya is pushing back against is the Sankhya philosophy of the yogis. So let's review, why is this an issue? So the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, I think they date something like 300 BCE. Then there was a fellow who came along in the Common Era. I'm not sure of his dates. He is called Vyasa. He's not the same as Veda Vyasa, the compiler of the Vedas, the author of the Mahabharata, etc. This Vyasa was a Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy says each one of us is an individual Purusha. Purusha actually means person. And nature is Prakriti. And they're kind of separate. And our bondage is caused by Purusha exercising will, desire, aversion, etc. Gets all tangled up in Prakriti. And the goal of yoga is to disentangle the Purusha from the Prakriti. If Prakriti is eternal and the Purusha is always there getting involved, what Vidyaranya is saying, there's no guarantee of any real permanent emancipation. And the Vedantins have a totally different viewpoint. Now, in Gita, we use the language of the Sankhya's. Krishna will say, this is my prakriti, my nature. Then he says, I have a higher prakriti. But what Gita thunders, what the Upanishads thunder is, this phenomenal world is not created. It comes about sankalpena, by means of imagination. There's nothing substantive really there. And that the self is never really bound. It only seems to be bound to the deluded mind. It isn't real. It's an appearance. Doesn't mean we don't experience it, just like we experience the dream. However vivid the dream is, it does not really touch me, the waker. Likewise, the very long and very vivid dream of Jiva Bhavana, I think I'm a person, does not really bind the self. It just deludes and confuses the mind. What is liberation? It's when that mind discovers, not that I was bound and now I'm free, but oh, I was never bound in the first place. I have always been Brahman. Just didn't know it in my mind. So that's the distinction between the Advaita Vedanta and the Sankhya philosophy. By the way, this does not mean that the practices of Raja Yoga are not efficacious. They can be very valuable. And they do. The Yoga Sutra does not need to be interpreted from a frame of Sankhya. You can interpret it very easily from a non-dual standpoint. Any thoughts about this? It's a little technical. How does it really strike you and me, modern day yogis? If I'm still laboring under the idea that I, the individual, I, Jim, need to be fixed, changed, altered, and that's what yoga's about, I've missed the point. Get out. See that you are not a person. Never were. All illusion. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Next verse.
Aviveka krita sango niyamascheti chettada balada patito maya vada sankhya's durmate. The idea of attachment to the body and of control is due to ignorance. Doubt, that's a doubt. The idea of attachment to the body and of control is due to ignorance. The reply, then you accept the conception of Maya, which is a violation of the short-sighted Sankhya doctrine. I'm
not sure who's talking or what the doubt is. I don't quite understand it.
So the student is asking the doubt, the idea of attachment to the body and of control is due to ignorance.
Yes.
And the teacher's reply is, then you accept the conception of Maya, which is a violation of the short-sighted Sankhya doctrine.
So I think the point again that they're driving at is the self is never really bound. Attachment and delusion occur in the mind as the result of the mental ignorance of the mind. What is the cause of that ignorance? Well, that's the Lord's Maya Shakti. That's the unexplained power of the infinite, whereby all of this appears to be. And the beings in this dream do not know who they are.
I think, Jim, I think what they're saying is Sankhya doesn't really have the conception of Maya. And so basically the idea of attachment to the body and of control, the student is saying,
oh, they think it's real. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other thoughts on it, Ganesh? You may know more about it than I.
No, I'm just picking it up as we go.
All right, next verse.
Excuse me. Bandha mokshavya pasthartam atmananatva mishyatam iti chennayato maya vyavasthapayitum kshama. Doubt. To account for the idea of individual bondage and release, the plurality of selves must be accepted. Reply. This is unnecessary because Maya is responsible for bondage and release.
Yes. So here again, the doubt is, are there individual souls in bondage who get released? And again, for me, it becomes very simple if you go back to the dream state. If you are in the dream and you get attacked by muggers in the dream and they kidnap you and throw you into a dungeon, as vivid as it is, when you wake up, did the dream person get freed from the dungeon? No. The whole dream is seen to be unreal. When I was dreaming, I did not know that I was safe in my bed, but I was safe in my bed. The dream of Jiva Bhavana, that I think I'm a person, is like the character in the dream. In the dream, I've got a dream body, and it's my locus of perception, and I have a dream ego identified with it. And the dream world seems real. And if I have an anxious dream or a fear dream or a stress dream, the dreamer seems to need to resolve the problem in the dream. That is like the problem Jim, I need to get liberated. Whereas what Vedanta says is, no, you're just deluded. Slow down. Renounce your attachments and identifications, and in a sattvic mind, see who you are. And you've always been that. Just like the person who has a lucid dream. They go, oh, this isn't real. I'm in the dream state. The other way that I can explain it is when I went to see the exhibit out at the De Young Museum on Ramses II. They had a virtual reality. You sat in these pods and put these goggles on and headphones. And it was so cool because you could look up and see the top of the tomb and move your head from side to side and look down and see the floor. It's as if you were in the tomb of Ramses II. But you knew all the time it's a virtual reality. But it seems so real. Yeah. Such is the power of mind. Any thoughts on this? One of the things why this is so important is because if we still want to make this sense of individuality a perfect being, I'm going to do all these practices and then I am going to become a saint. I'm going to become a Mahatma. I'm going to have all these siddhis. Or I'm going to stop being a jerk. There's no end to it. It becomes like trying to sweep the darkness out of the room. Vedanta says, shift your identity out of the dream. All right, next verse.
Durghatam ghatayamiti viruddham kinna pashyasi vastavau bandhamokshau tu shrutir na sahate taram. Don't you see that Maya can make the impossible appear possible? In fact, the Shruti can tolerate neither bondage nor release as real.
Yes. So, what Vidyaranya is saying, echoing what Yoga Vasishta says, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. They are in Maya. They're not real. What is my bondage? Nothing more than the deeply rooted conviction in my mind that I'm bound, meaning I think I'm my body. There is no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction in my mind. Not that I'm a liberated soul, but that I am Brahman and I know where happiness is now. Neither state affects the self. The mind does not know the self. Only the self knows the self. And the great cosmic joke is you've had that all along. But the mind does have this pratyabhignana, this recognition, this aha. And it's only the mind that has the problem. All of that occurs in. Now we have to be very careful, because if we take on this teaching too soon, my bondage isn't real, liberation isn't real, so I might as well go smoke crack. It isn't real. And from the level of the absolute, that's true. But it can become a justification of our suffering. How do I get out of my suffering? in my mind, realize, oh, I'm not the body. In my mind, realize the world isn't good or bad, it's void. In my mind, I realize, how can I be happy? As Jory said, soak the mind in Brahman, drown the mind in the sound. Any thoughts? Next verse.
न निरोधो न चोत्पत्ति न बधो न च साधकः न मुमुक्षुर्न वै मुक्त इत्येषा परमार्थता. The Shruti declares that in fact there is no destruction and no origination, none in bondage and none engaged in practice for liberation, no aspirant for liberation and none liberated. This is the transcendental truth.
Yes. So the appearance of the mumukshu and their struggles towards liberation in all their sadhana and all their practices is like a dream. So the ego never arrives. Being a mumukshu, a seeker after liberation, is an ego state. I let go of the ego state of being a bhogi, more, better, different, gimme, 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 for the ego state of the mumukshu or the yogi. But in the end, we drop any personal sense of self. The mind itself comes to see its own fundamental unreality. You can't think a real thought. The Vedanta isn't real. The scriptures are not real. The bondage isn't real. The liberation isn't real. Nothing in the world of phenomena is real. Mandukya Karika, the fourth Karika in the second chapter. Gaudapada thunders. The phenomenal world is quite unreal, and the proof of its unreality is that it is seen. If you can see it, it isn't there. It just appears. What is there? What is real? Aham. That's what's real. Next verse.
Mayakhyayah kamadhenuho vatso jivaishvarabhubhau yatecham pibatam dvaitam tattvam padvaitameva hi. Maya is said to be the desire-fulfilling cow. Jiva and Ishvara are its two calves. Drink of its milk of duality as much as you like, but the truth is non-duality.
Yes. So Maya makes it appear that I'm a person and the world is joy giving and misery producing. I am in bondage. I want to get liberated. So and so is a Mahatma. Somebody else is a demon. Knock yourself out if you want to go down that path. And it has subtler and subtler forms. Oh, Lord Shiva appeared to me in my meditation. Guruji spoke to me. I'm channeling my higher self. All sorts of spiritual experiences. All of it is dreamlike. What should I do then, Jim? Put the robot on automatic pilot, watch it, let it fulfill its role in this Maya. Let it be a hand of the Lord. Don't worry. Any thoughts? Next verse.
कूटस्थ ब्रह्मणोर्भेदो नाम मात्राद्रतेन हि घटाकाशं घटाकाशमहाकाशौ वियुज्येते न हि क्वचित्. The difference between kutastha, the difference between
Kutastha, the immovable.
Yeah, I think the English has ta, but the the Devanagari has ta. So, well, I think it's Kutastha and Brahman is only in name. In reality, there is no difference. The Akasha in the pot and the unlimited Akasha are not distinct from one another.
Yes. So this is the classic metaphor. You see me do it all the time. So we have space inside the water glass. Gata is a pot. So we can use water glass. There's space in the water glass. There's space around it in the room. If I move the water glass, the space does not move. There's a relationless relationship. I call it space inside the glass. At best, I can say there's not space in the glass, there's a glass in space. And if I break the glass, nothing happens to space. Yourself is not inside your body. Just like the dream self is not inside the dream body. Sure seems like it, though. It is a locus of perception that fools me. I am peeping out of these senses, and Ganesh is over there and he's peeping out of a different unit. It seems. But that's only a trick of Maya, of the mind. The self, pure existence, pure being, Baba. You're not an it. You are a conscious, sentient being. You go nowhere. The world does not touch you. The light show goes on, and you are Kutastha, untouched, always. Next verse.
यदद्वैतं श्रुतं सृष्टेः प्राक्तदेवाद्यचोपरि मुक्तावपि Vritha Maya Bhramyatya Bhramyatyakhilanjanan. Oh, Bhramayatyakilanjanan. The non-dual reality as declared in the Shruti existed before creation, exists now, and will continue to exist in dissolution. And after liberation, Maya deludes the people in vain.
Yes. So before the Big Bang, I am. After the big crunch, the big cool, I am. Doesn't stop. And before the mind wakes up, this Maya has the power to delude the mind. But even the most miserable of creatures never doubts that he is, never doubts that he's aware of his misery. And when the mind wakes up, Maya no longer has the power to delude that mind. Doesn't mean that you don't see the phenomena, but it's different. Seen, but not real. Oh, I'm so frightened I can't get on the BART train because the tracks meet in the distance. Ignorance. Knowledge. The tracks still look like they meet in the distance, but I know that's an optical illusion, the vanishing point. The tracks are parallel. So the man of wisdom moves through the world at peace, without fear. Next verse.
Ye vadanti thametepi bhramyante vidyayatra kim nayatha purvametesham atra bhranter adarshanat. Doubt. Even the knowers who attribute the world to Maya are seen to be engaged in worldly pursuits. So, what is the use of realization? Reply. No, he is not deluded as before.
Yes. So the doubt is, of what use is this realization if it's all just illusion? And the Mahatma still seems to be functioning in the world like everybody else. And Vidyaranya says, no, it's not the same. So I go back to that beautiful language that Shankara uses in Vivekachudamani in his description of the teacher, who's a full knower of the Supreme, meaning his mind never gets deluded, who has retired into the Supreme. His mind no longer extroverts with craving or revulsion into the world, who is never afflicted by desires, who's as calm as a fire that has burnt up its fuel, who's Daya Sindhu, I love that expression, an ocean of compassion, of mercy, of friendliness. It's different. Next verse.
Ahi kamushmika savaha sansaro vastavastata nabhati nasti chadvaitam ityajnani vinishchayah. The ignorant are convinced that the happiness and grief which the world and heaven offer are real. So they do not perceive non duality nor think it exists.
So for the person in ignorance, the only joy they get is as the result of working really hard to try to get stuff, which is like sand moving through your fingers. It's so temporary. Constantly endeavoring to try to secure ego. Am I okay? How am I doing? What do they think of me? Incredibly painful place. Or as Hamlet says, grunting and sweating under a weary life. Or the song Old Man River, I'm tired of living and scared of dying. That's the fruit of spiritual ignorance. Now, it's like a nightmare, and it isn't real. But for the person in ignorance, they don't even know it's not real. Next verse.
Jnaninam viparitosma anishchaya samyagikshate swasvanishchayato badho muktoham cheti manyate. It is clearly seen that the conviction of the knowers is opposed to the conviction of the ignorant. They are free or fettered according to their conviction.
Yes. So all we have to do is observe those in ignorance, driven by 1,000 demons of desire. The men of wisdom, just observe them. How many times have I said to people, just look at a photo of Donald Trump and then look at a photo of Ramana Maharshi. And you tell me who has what you want. Many people want what Donald Trump has. Others of us, we just look at the face of Bhagawan. Oh, that serenity, that love, that peace. By their fruits ye shall know them. It's one of the things the Master Jesus said. And I like to say, who you are speaks much louder than anything you can say. You can have the God talk down. But people can tell if you've got a heart filled with fear and anger and resentment and self-obsession. And they can also feel when the person is envy. And can give us that shunya prasad, that gift of the empty. Next verse.
Nadvaitam aparoksham chen chidrupen bhasanat asheshena nabhatam ched advaitam kim bhasate khilam. Doubt. The non-dual reality is not directly perceptible. Reply. This is not so, for reality is self-evident in the form of consciousness. Doubt. It is not fully known. Reply. Is the world fully known to you?
Yes. So the knowledge of the self is different than our knowledge of the world. The world is known through the triple factor, knower, knowing, and known. I, Jim, through seeing, know the both. But the self, even though it is not known as an object, or if you're in ignorance, you may think, I do not know the self. What Vidyaranya is saying is, even though you have that idea, the self is still fully known by you. How do you know you are you? First and foremost, we got to make sure we're not thinking of the self as something outside. So the teacher holds up an object and says, who sees the phone? And the student goes, I do. That's yourself. You don't get a new self. Oh, right now I'm stuck in my lower self. I'm waiting till I can get in touch with the higher self. Nonsense. Nonsense. If I am getting in touch with a higher self, it's not me. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. It's you. Now, stop. How do you know you are you? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. Yet you do not doubt that you are. You do not doubt that you're knowing stuff. And then I love the second part of the shloka here. Do you know the world? Well, that's really kind of funny, because in the beginning we think the world is real and God or the self is a mystery. Seeing is believing. But the more we understand that what we're seeing is the play, the trick of the mind, it is the world itself that's the great mystery, not God. God is the most real knowable thing there is. It's the only real knowable thing. It's this world. That's the mystery. If you could gain it, you could lose it. What you're looking for, you're looking with. When you finally get it in your head, you see it is the most present, obvious, permanent dimension of your very being. You're always you. And it is a changeless reality. Don't believe me. Look. Next verse.
दिङ्मात्रेण विभानं तु द्वयोरपि समं खलु द्वैतसि द्वैतसिद्धिपदैत्व Dvaita siddhivada dvaita siddhiste tavatanakim. Both duality and non-duality are partially known. If from this partial experience you infer the truth of duality, why would you not, from the same premise, infer the truth of non-duality?
So both duality and non-duality are partially known by the mind. I know that I'm seeing something, may not know what it is. I kind of know I am, but I'm not sure what I am. Partially know. Do I partially know non-duality? In a sense, yes. This world that is nothing but Brahman, I partially know that the world has a kind of Sat. And I certainly know that I have existence. I'm just not clear about it in my mind. What is this world? In the end, it's all Brahman. What is myself? It too is all Brahman. Next verse.
Dvaitena hinam advaitam dvaita jnane katham tvidam chidbhana tvavirodhyasya dvaitasyato same ubhe. Doubt. Duality contradicts non-duality. So when duality is seen manifest everywhere, how can you infer its opposite principle, non-duality? Our consciousness does not contradict duality, so our position is stronger than yours.
So this is kind of a very stubborn disciple. I see stuff. I, Jim, cognize a world. That's duality. I'm a Purusha, that's Prakriti. How can you say it's non-dual? The world is something other than me, subject object. How can you say there's no duality? To say there's no duality is contradicted by my direct experience. That's his doubt. Let's see what the reply is. Next verse.
Evam tarhi shrunudvaitam asanmaya mayatvatah tena vastavam parisheshad vibhasate. Reply, then listen, duality is unreal and has no independent existence, for it is a product of Maya. So when duality is negated, what remains as reality is non-duality.
Yes. So what he's talking about is we have these two scriptural statements. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world is illusory. It's a lie. It's false. It's pratibimba. It's like a reflection. Adhyasa, it's a superimposition created by Maya. What's really there? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all Brahma. And again, it's easy to understand when we compare the very simple act of visualizing something with the dream state. If I close my eyes and I visualize fettuccine Alfredo, I see the little fettuccine and cream sauce and lots of cheese on it. Very yummy. So, is my imagined fettuccine Alfredo separate from me? Well, there's certainly subject object, but it's nothing substantive. It's not real. It's just a mental image. It looks like two, but it's not two. And if I dream about going out to dinner and having fettuccine Alfredo, again, the material cause is imagination. There's nothing there, but the dream has many Maya. My personal ignorance of deep sleep, so that to the dreamer, the dream pasta seems real. This is no different. When I look into a mirror and I see the image in the mirror, is the image in the mirror different from the mirror itself? No. It is the nature of the mirror to reflect. I cannot take the image out of the mirror. The image is not separate from the mirror. It's not different than the mirror. The mirror and the image in the mirror are non-dual. They are the same thing. And the image in the mirror is asat. It's not real. Anitya has no real permanence. So is this one. Like a virtual reality. When I went to see the Ramses II thing, when the 10-minute virtual tour was over, a button was pushed and the whole thing disappeared. As vivid as it wasn't real. Next verse.
Jim, isn't this whole exchange basically like saying we can't really understand non-duality with the mind? Because ultimately, when the student kept pressing, the teacher is like, well, duality is part of Maya.
That's certainly a valid way to look at it. In the end, the non-dual vision comes as the result of abhyasa vairagyacha. It comes as the result of deep meditation and intense renunciation. The whole non-dual vision is not just a philosophy. It's rooted in a direct experience. But to understand it logically at least helps us let go of the gripping attitude of the concreteness of the phenomenal world. Frankly, I can only speak from my own direct experience. This was one of the greatest fruits of the psychedelic. Psychedelic did not show me ultimate reality, but what it revealed was the unreality of the waking state world. Now, because I was deluded, I had the double delusion. I thought what I saw on the LSD was real, but I was convinced that my ordinary mind state, oh, God, that's so unreal, that's so concrete, that's so limited. That's all we need to get from the scripture is just this possibility that my firmly rooted belief in the reality of the world isn't real. And that can inform and give me the courage to go on with my practice. Now that's my take on it. Now, there is no one right way to interpret scripture. So do you share with us your insight?
Well, I think that makes sense. I just was looking at the arc of the whole thing, right? So the student first says, like, duality appears more real, and then and like I'm not able to experience non-duality. The teacher's like, you're experiencing non-duality in the form of consciousness, but then he says that the student says, it's only partial, my experience, right? And then the teacher says, well, you experience the world partially too. And then the student comes back and like again says, like, well, but if I'm experiencing things essentially, when I'm experiencing things partially, that by its nature means it's dual, because there are two things there's a thing that I'm experiencing and a thing that I'm not experiencing, that by nature it means it's dual. And so then the teacher says, listen, my like duality is a construct of Maya. And so that's where the answer finally ends, which essentially I thought was the arc was kind of suggesting that you can't really understand non-duality with the mind beyond a certain point.
I agree. And yet he tries to talk about it. These things at best point. But hopefully, what Vidyaranyan's argument is doing is going to inspire the student to be open to the idea of non-duality and to engage in practice. Now, again, practically speaking, when I work with people in AA, I can't tell you how many of them still believe that getting sober, the purpose of it is so I can get a better job, so I can make more money, so I can have a fancier car, so I can get the boyfriend or the girlfriend, so everybody will see me. Have another one who says, Jim, I just need a new identity. I need a new, what was the word? Narrative of who I am. And as a yogi, I look at this and I say, God bless you guys, but you've missed the point. But so strong is Maya, these guys can't let go of that view of the world. Mainly because they've had no experience of anything else. Yet I've had other people. I mean, I had a student who was here. We were just starting on Mandukya Upanishad. And we got tuned up together and we just kind of zapped, and all of a sudden, whoosh, for a moment, her world disappeared. It was a direct apprehension. And she bursts into tears. All this stuff unloaded. Who's to say? But again, scripture is maximum meaning with minimum words. The way I'm particularly unfolding scripture is simply from this particular mind's viewpoint. Yours is absolutely valid. Doesn't have to agree with mine. And there is no one right way. Is that useful?
Yeah, yes, Jim.
And for all of you, each of us finds our own way to the infinite in the end. All right, what verse are we on?
We are on 246, or we are going to do 246.
And how many totally do we have? 250 something?
No, there are far more. 280, I
Okay.
think, is what we
That's
said.
right. Okay, keep going then.
Achintya rachana rupam mayaiva sakalam jagat iti nishchitya vastutvam advaite parisheshyatam. The whole world is a product of the inscrutable Maya. Be convinced of this and know that the fundamental real principle is non-duality.
Yes. So again, he's trying to convince the student, be convinced that the whole world is Maya. The whole world is like a dream. Don't take it seriously. Don't take it as real. Dial down your investment in it, your reactivity to it. Keep tuning up the mind. Let go, let go, go. Next verse.
पुनर्द्वैतस्य वस्तुत्वं भाति चेत् त्वं यथा पुनः परिशीलय को वात्र प्रयासस्तेन ते वद. Doubt. If the idea that duality is real occurs again and again in daily life, reply. Repeatedly practice negating this erroneous idea of duality. What is the difficulty in doing so?
So here, Vidyaranya is implying a practice. So I may be open to the idea of non-duality, the unreality of the forms of the phenomenal world, the unreality of any individual sense of self. In satsang or meditation, I may have glimpses of the no-thingness of I. But then as I'm out there in the world, I, Jim, seem real, and the world seems real, and I go through my, what we call vyavahara, my transactions with it. And I have duality. What Vidyaranya is saying is, try continuing to maintain the idea, seen but not real. Don't be engaged, don't be involved, don't be attached, don't be identified. Be empty as you move through. And then start to see what happens. And the grip of the world's apparent reality starts to loosen. So this is not just a philosophical discussion. There is a practice implied. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Kiyantam kalamiti chet खेदोऽयं द्वैत इष्यताम् अद्वैते तुनयोक्तोऽयं सर्वानर्थनिवारणात्. Doubt. How long should one continue this practice? Reply. It is a trouble to continue the pursuit of unreal duality. Not so is that of non-duality, for by the practice of non-duality, all miseries are destroyed.
Yes. So, how long do I keep having to do this sadhana? It's really hard. And Vidyaranya says, oh, you've got it upside down. Living life as an ego is what's hard. Practicing non-duality makes life easy. In Gita, Krishna says, even a little bit of this knowledge frees us from great fear. Even if you can continue to remind yourself you lose your job, it's all going to work out. It's just like a dream. The self-me is never touched. A beloved relative dies. Actually, nobody dies. It's just that the body has dropped off. They're okay. You look in the mirror and you see you're starting to age, your hair is falling out, your skin's starting to sag. Oh my God, I'm losing my beauty and my youth. Remind yourself, well, I'm really not the body. When I'd stay away from the mirror and sit in a chair so nothing hurts, I'm still just me. I haven't aged. Before self-realization even appears, you can take a partial understanding, Ishvara Pranidhana, this trustful surrender to God. Turn it over to the infinite. My life is not my own as an ego anymore. I've given it to God. It's an oblation. It is yajna. It's a sacrifice. It's an offering to the gods. Not even into non-duality, just even that much frees us from a lot of fear and suffering. I was listening to a friend talk. He's a crystal meth addict, and he's relapsed about 3 months ago, and he's still got all the paranoia. He's obsessing, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job. It's so afflicting, he was thinking of killing himself. He's got a job, and even if he loses the job, he's going to be okay. Even a little of this knowledge frees us from great fear. Rooted in this knowledge, we have the capacity finally to enjoy. Everybody else has got the brakes on. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I'm afraid it's going to pass. For the man of wisdom, yeah, and so what? Next verse.
कृत्पिपासादयो दृष्टा यथा पूर्वं मयीति चेत् मच्छब्दवाच्येऽहङ्कारे दृश्यतां नेति को वदेत्. Doubt, but even after realization, I suffer from hunger and thirst. Reply, who denies it? This suffering is in your egoity, product of duality expressed in your use of I.
Yes. So the pain of this world does not cease affecting the body, but knowing that it doesn't affect me, and having gone through the mental training of intense renunciation, even hunger and thirst don't have the same sting that they used to. All right, we'll end here. What verse are we on for next week?
250.
Okie doke. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.